We got some of our business rules right from a very early stage. We did our IPO in 2016, IPP in 2017, raised about between two rounds, raised 1,270 crores of cash, listed our company and used that cash to go and build two new businesses.
Today we are in an India which is not like before. And I would say world, especially because of the AI, especially because of the disruptions.
We said we want to run a business which has a 20% return on equity, where we want to convert at least about 60 to 65% of our EBITDA to cash or OCF, where we grow our margins by about 20 basis points. Our EPS growth is almost by about 20% every year. So all of this translated to a good set of business metrics. I think hiring women has a business impact. It's not for optics. Women, they're more intuitive in work situations, they have better teamwork, and they're generally more disciplined. We also notice that the rest of the workforce gets more disciplined when we have more women.
Ajit, you are a very important man for the country, for all of us, and for the young people of India. You help people get jobs, and especially people about whom many of us, as we grow in the ladder, do not consciously think about. उसको हम कहते हैं blue-collar jobs. And there are more than 450,000 people whom you've employed.
That's right.
Yeah. It's big, it's important, and something that we need to recognize in a world getting disrupted with AI. So just before we begin, tell us about the Quess journey, the Quess story, and how are you enabling people?
I'm actually a human resource professional by training. I come from Chennai. And then in 1990, I started working as a HR manager in Bombay. My first job was as a management trainee in Godrej and Boyce in Vikhroli. So I spent a year with them. And then after that, I worked with two other companies in Bombay, IDFC and the SR Group, both in HR jobs. And it was, I think, the year 96 that I became a Chevening Scholar. I went to study at the Leeds University, came back, and 2000, I founded my first company with capital from JP Morgan. That company was called People One Consulting. It was a recruiting company, small company. We raised about $250,000 or so at that time. And then the company did pretty well. It went on to have about 35,000 people on its rolls. And we sold that company in 2004 to Adecco, the world's largest HR solutions company. So here's where it starts. When we sold to Adecco had 710,000 people worldwide. We had 35,000 people. Today, we have about 630,000 if we take all our companies put together, and maybe Adecco is around 500 to 550. So it's a reflection of how employment is moving worldwide. It's moving from developed markets. It's moving in developing markets at a far greater speed and pace than is moving in developing.
It's also a story of entrepreneurship, right? Like as an entrepreneur, आप अपनी story, अपना game, like you can just change the playground. Yeah, you made that happen.
Yeah, but I think also we are a product of our times. We are a lucky company. We're lucky because of 2-3 things. One is I had a great team working with me all along. Second is we were lucky that we caught the economic tailwind in India at its full force. The first quantum force was in between, let's say, 2003 and 2007, when everybody who walked outside an IT company almost got hired. That was a time when the world was coming out of Y2K, building enterprise solutions. Web 1.0 was just beginning. So a lot of the stuff in the IT space was taking shape, and offshore delivery centers in India were being set up. So we were part of that revolution, so to say, and we built a good practice with that. And then the global financial crisis came in 2007, 2008, lasted till about 2010. We had a small policy paralysis and a slowdown in India between 2012 and 13, and then things picked up in 2014, 15. We did our IPO in 2016. IPP in 2017, raised about between two rounds, raised 1,270 crores of cash, listed our company and used that cash to go and build two new businesses. So the IT business that we have today, which is called Digitide, which just got demerged and listed about 40 days ago, was built out of the money raised from the IPO. And then came the infra services business. So we have three businesses now. One, the original one, which is the staffing and the recruiting business. The other two, infra services and IT, built out of the cash raised from operations and from the IPO.
Wow.
So that's
the story. That's the story, and a lot of lesson here for people building their ventures and building their businesses, right? Like you started as a staffing company and today you're an IT and infra company also. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, so I think it's we got some of our business rules right from a very early stage. We said we want to run a business which has a 20% return on equity, where we want to convert at least about 60 to 65% of our EBITDA to cash or OCF, where we grow our margins by about 20 basis points, where our EPS growth is almost by about 20% every year. So all of this translated to a good set of business metrics. So when we took our company for an IPO in 2016, we were oversubscribed 145 times. It was the highest oversubscription at that point in time. And all this makes a virtuous cycle. So you do well, you convert this to, you monetize this as an asset in public markets, raise more money, use that money to go build other businesses, and those businesses that you've now demerged and taken it out as independent companies.
Wow.
So it's a virtuous cycle. And we think we've also benefited a lot from the changes that's taking place in India. And we found ourselves in the midst of that change, formalization, where workforce are moving from informal structures to formal structures, from unorganized to the organized sector, from the conventional to the digital. And in all of this, outsourcing was growing tremendously. So ultimately, if you look at our company, we are an outsourcing company aiming to get a larger wallet share of everybody's outsourcing budget. That's what we are.
And the IT and the infra
they all come together.
Yeah, they all come together actually. Yeah. And that brings me to the question of, let's go to the staffing, let's go to the workforce, let's go, because we are a country of, we are a services country and we have such high labor force. What are some of the shifts? What are some of the changes that you've seen in the journey? And why I'm asking you this, because today we are in an India which is not like before. And I would say world, especially because of the AI, especially because of the disruption. Kya trends hain aur aap kya dekh rahe hain?
The multiple changes that's taking place in workforce in India. The first change is that nature of contracts are changing. Previously, when my father worked in a company, 40 years ago, he used to say he had one job, one boss, one house, one car, one wife. And in our generation, everything has changed. We work for 4 or 5 employers, sometimes with 2 3 employers at the same time. So there's multiple set of changes. Our contractual system has changed. Who are we contracted to work with? So it could either be as a permanent employee of a company, working with only one singular employer. Second, it could be as a flexi staff, where we work part of the time with somebody, or full time with somebody for some time. Third, we could be moonlighting, working with multiple people for the day. Fourth, we could be doing output-based work, that I'll prepare presentations, that I will make analyst reports on a quantum of work done basis. So there are multiple ways by which, and then the last thing is a gig economy, where supply and demand is connected electronically or through the internet, and you're doing the fulfillment. So there's a demand that's generated by somebody, supply that you come in with, and you're connected through an electronic system, and fulfillment that you deliver through it. So that's one change that's happened. Contractual systems have changed. The second change that's happened is that people can work from home, and some people work from office. So this happened post-COVID, when it was desirable that everybody worked separately and not in one place together because of the nature of the epidemic. And that became a work style later on. Today, at least about 20 to 25% of jobs, about 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 jobs can be done entirely from home. About another, let's say, equal number can be done in a hybrid basis. You go to office a few days, attend a few meetings, come back home. 50% of jobs are still office-based jobs. But here we must say one point. There's a certain people equity in office that comes from meeting together, physically interacting, discussing, going onto a whiteboard, ideating, etc. That physical, that contact and that interaction creates a people equity which is not there in a work from home basis.
Yeah.
Then the third aspect that's increasingly hitting the industry is the influence or the impact that AI is creating on workforces. So contractual arrangements, where you work, and now AI. These are 3 dimensionally different things. AI, I think, in the long term, its impact is underestimated. In the short term, it's overestimated. That's how I think it's developing, because we think a lot of things will happen with AI. It's not going to happen at the speed at which it will happen. AI is also gender agnostic. It's not going to attack men more than it'll attack women. AI is also not region agnostic, because what happens in America will happen in India sooner than later. So if it happens in developed markets, it's going to come to India in a flash.
Yeah.
So we should be clear about all these things. I think what's going to be the trigger in this is the number of use cases that's being developed. India has one of the largest libraries of use cases being developed right now. One. Second is that almost about 1/3 of all talent in AI has Indian origin. So people working in the United States or in AI could actually be of Indian origin. So India has a head start in AI on two fronts. One, in number of use cases, and just the people where they come from, and they being of Indian origin. And the last change that will come in then in employment is, I think there's going to be a lot of protectionism in economy, because you can see tariffs, you can see how how governments are taking decisions on investments. So when protectionism comes, some core jobs, especially manufacturing, will increase, because you're not going to outsource as much or buy it from outside the country. You want to protect it internally. Manufacturing will start regaining a color that it never had in the past. So these are sort of the, I think, talking points about why and where employment is going in the future. The last point I want to make is that livelihoods is a subject that's intrinsic to an economy and to people's lives and society. So if we are in the employment business, I think we are impacting something that's existential to people and an economy.
Yes.
And to that extent, I think the work that we do at Quess, at Digitide, and at Blue Spring is structurally important to India. So we are a sort of structurally important group of companies now to the economy.
Yeah, that's why I said you're an important person, because of the importance. It is so important. Structural aspect of the economy, social, right? Like, and especially there are so many people in your workforce. Again, I want to call this out, who come from the eastern part of the country, and again, it's a part of the country that needs that opportunity, and Quess is employing. Tell us about that, and what are you seeing the trends? Because today Krishnan sir spoke about the requirement that human resource will become very important.
So as markets are, even the employment market is not a perfect market. You don't get as much supply as much as the demand that you want from any one particular area. You don't get as much the skills that you want at the skill level that you want in any particular pin code. So, and there is friction. Employment is always filled with friction. If you have to hire somebody, you have to come up with a job description. Your HR department has to float that job description to consultants or to look up job boards, to download CVs. You interview them. You make an offer. Out of every 5 offers, you make only 3 people take the job. Out of every 3 people who take the job, only 2 join.
Yeah.
And then out of 2 join, maybe about 30% leave in the first 6 months. So there's a tremendous amount of friction in this entire process. And this friction, the management of this friction and the connection of demand and supply is what people like us do. So we are a market-making company. We connect demand and supply to employers. One. Second is we take the friction out of the process. And that's really our job. So if you examine this in the Indian context, supply and demand, if you take the job producing states, South, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Haryana. Rest of the country are really supplier states. And in supplier states, there are certain issues. For example, there's Menrega. There are certain subsidies provided by the government of those states, which prevent people sometimes from taking easy decisions about migrating to places of work. So it's a complex situation. It's not easy to resolve with just one policy directive. You can't change it that way. There is cultural issues involved. There is safety issues involved. There is societal issues involved, because you would bring families, then you have to provide education for kids of migrant families, etc. Then there is public health related matters involved, because you have to find insurance cover and healthcare cover for an incoming population, etc. So there's multiple things. Where do we start? The first is by states finding investment for jobs. So it has to start with Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, etc., or Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, finding incoming investment for creating jobs. After that, they have then skill. Then after you skill, you have to house. After you house, you have to then uh, transport them to their work situation. So if you take care of all of this, I think you got a starting point. China did it brilliantly. China has done this over, let's say, the last 30 years almost. If you look at the EMS companies in India, Foxconn, the Tatas, and a few others that have set up EMS shops, greatly influenced by manufacturing practices from China. Some of them have all women workforces.
Yeah.
5,000 people, all women. It's not that their dexterity or nimbleness of hands is making them more employable, but it's also the belief that if you get women more employed and you pump them into the workforce and therefore into the economy, there is a general upshift.
Yeah.
And that's what they're batting for. So this has to come in at many levels into policy making and into execution by the government. How do we create the workforce? How do we drive the investment in? How do we create the infrastructure to support all of them? And finally, by taking an issue head on, which is regulation. India is perhaps today the most regulated market in the world, right from stock markets to other types of regulation. It's in terms of ease of doing business, it's in fact coming down. It's the elephant in the room and nobody's confronting it yet. We have to actually work on reducing the amount of compliances we have to bear. 47% to 50% of all compliance is related to labor. So unless you ease up on this, it's not going to become easy for an entrepreneur to think about taking all the risks and regulation to build a business.
Ajit, you've made this bold, and I must say and congratulate you for this decision that you're saying that in Quess you are today at 50% of women in your workforce, and you're saying that for your clients you will increase from 18, 19 to push towards 30%. That's a big thing. Tell us about that.
So, I think hiring women has a business impact. It's not for optics. Women are more people-centric. They're more intuitive in work situations. They have better teamwork. They're generally more disciplined. We also notice that the rest of the workforce gets more disciplined when we have more women. So all of this has business gains, has profit gains. It's estimated that profit gains are of the order of between 5% to 20% when you have a greater number of women in the workforce. So there is a business dimension to this decision. Take the business dimension out for a moment, assuming that you've crossed that bridge. I think there are other social dimensions. I think when one half of the population has greater agency, the right to choose what they want to do because they've got economic power. They've got money in their wallets so they can decide what to buy. They've got money in their wallets so they can decide what to go and entertain themselves with. They have money in their wallets to decide how to bring up their children. They have money in their wallets to live an independent life.
Yeah.
When they have an independent life, the choices they make will impact policy making in society itself, and which is not one-sided. And that is necessary, I think so. You can't build factories alone and think that society is going to improve.
Yeah.
Society changes when the periphery of people in society changes. That means when the majority takes the minority in, or when those who have been denied now has access. And I think on all of these factors, I think we have to work harder.
So beautifully said. It's like an important thing for all of us to hear, right? Like you have to include everyone, and that's how we will prosper in a fulfilling way, right? What do you think as a country we need to do right now? Because you've seen this space to address the issue of employment.
Well, I think certain aspects that have been done that need to be done structurally, and some aspects that need to be done tactically. One, private capital formation in India is not very high. It's dropped from what was about, let's say, 42% to maybe about 36% in the last, let's say, 6 years' time. Public sector investments have been growing, but unless you get private sector to participate more in investing, I don't think employment creation is going to grow at the pace that we really want it to be at. So one is that. Second is that we have to skill better. maybe 55 to 60% of our graduates are today unemployable. So there's something that needs to be done with the courses that we've got, or maybe make it apprentice style programs where they can work for a bit, study for a bit, and gather skills on the job rather than only sitting in classrooms.
Yeah.
So skilling is the second thing. The third thing is that our regulatory system needs a definite overhaul, because we need more people to become entrepreneurs, more people to become successful. The regulatory system will kill them before they even start. You have to make that system work a little bit more favorably for entrepreneurs. We have to look at a little bit more equity in the system, where we're able to, there are poorer states than the richer states. So the poorer states, I think, need attention today. And unless we get, sometimes they say that the speed of a train is measured by its slowest coach. So you have, if you have the eastern states picking up, I think we're definitely going to find some joy in terms of development. And the last point I want to make is there's these, indicators of development that we have to track and increase rapidly, which is stuff like health, accommodation, and public transport. So if these three we work on, I think there'll be drastic and there'll be a multiplier effect on the rest of society.
Again, I want to talk about human resources, because India is a country with such large numbers that we talk about our workforce and it all becomes young population, this population, that population. Do you think that we've done enough if we look at the human capital, right? Valuing people at workforce, and what can we do to make it better?
I think we haven't done enough. A simple measurement of that is in terms of minimum wages that we pay. Our minimum wages has not proportionately kept pace with the changes of cost of living. And we need to address minimum wages. Some states have done. Delhi, for example, has got a higher minimum wage level. Some others are working on it. But clearly, minimum wages has to go up. When minimum wages go up, it has got two positive outcomes. One is that you get more disposable income. But the other one is more important. Employers become more conscious of productivity because they're paying more, so they'll want more productivity. And when how do you increase GDP of a country? Only by a workforce either becoming more productive or by increasing the consumption, which is maybe population-led. We can't increase our population any more than where it is right now. So we have to make ourselves more productive, get more disposable income, and therefore raise GDP levels of the country. Per capita incomes, therefore, as an outcome from it. So we have raising minimum wages, although may sound counterintuitive, saying that we should leave it to market forces. If you compulsorily work on it for a period of time, will I think will have this impact. So that's one answer to your question about whether we've treated human resources effectively or not. The second thing is that I think private sector should take, and it came out in today's conference also, that private sector should take a little bit more accountability for benefits. So when you do that, I think your next generation of workers are going to improve, because there's always a lag time between investment in some of the social indicators and its outcomes. It does not happen in 5 to 6 years' time. So corporations got to put more time and effort into that. And I think the realization is coming, but I think a faster pace of that will help.
Yeah.
So these are the two things that I would say.
Thank you. This is such a brilliant answer. Yeah, and something that we all as people in the country need to think about and work on, and of course our policymakers. Ajit, thank you so much for this conversation. It's always very good talking to you. And again, I have to say that there's a lot of learning lesson for all of us. From you as an entrepreneur, the way you have taken Quess forward, this is such a phenomenal story. I think you should talk more. And it was a pleasure talking to you. And please keep enabling and creating employment opportunities for more and more Indians. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.